The Galactic Council had a very simple rule. If a planet was classified as a Class 9 or higher, you avoided it at all costs. Class 10? You ran. Class 11? You didn't even acknowledge its existence, lest it sensed you looking at it and decided to fire something large and explosive in your direction. Class 12. No one even knew what that looked like, because anyone who had ever tried to study a Class 12 world had been erased from existence so thoroughly that even their grandmothers forgot they had ever existed. And now someone, some absolute cosmic imbecile, had reported the existence of a Class 13 planet. The council chamber was in chaos. Shouts, squeaks, growls, and the occasional telepathic scream filled the room, as diplomats and scientists from 100 species tried to process what was, without a doubt, the worst news in recorded history. The High Speaker of the Council, a gelatinous entity named Blorgoth VII, quivered with stress, his normally calm blue hue flickering to an alarming shade of neon orange. "Class 13!" he bellowed, his voice gurgling like a sentient puddle having a nervous breakdown. "This must be an error, a joke. Someone please tell me it's a joke." Unfortunately, no one had a sense of humor in the Galactic Council. It had been genetically removed from most species after the disastrous incident of the Laughing Suns, where an entire civilization had giggled itself into oblivion. The report stood. The planet, designated Earth, was by every measurement a full-fledged Class 13. Ambassador Kirill, a serpentine diplomat from the Yathari Dominion, coiled and uncoiled anxiously. "What? What does Class 13 even mean?" he hissed. The room fell silent. No one knew. The classification system had only gone up to 12. Anything beyond that was pure theory. A nervous, six-eyed scientist from the Analytical Bureau hesitantly raised one of her appendages. "Well," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "theoretically speaking, Class 13 is supposed to be a civilization that not only survives in an environment of constant existential threats, but thrives in it. Meaning, the inhabitants would not just endure devastation, chaos, and destruction. They would enjoy it." Silence. Absolute silence. Then, "Oh no!" Blorgoth VII collapsed into a quivering, gelatinous heap. Kirill made a strangled, hissing noise that sounded suspiciously like a sob. A diplomat from the Ultrag Collective, whose species had evolved from particularly anxious rodents, curled into a fetal position and whispered, "We're all doomed," repeatedly. "Who discovered this?" "Horror?" Blorgoth wheezed. A trembling bureaucrat raised a feeble tentacle. It was the exploration fleet, Supreme Speaker. They detected an advanced civilization in the Sol system and sent drones for a closer look. And the drones were intercepted. Intercepted? Yes, but not in the way we expected. They weren't destroyed. They were laughed at. Blorgoth flickered from neon orange to a shade best described as existential dread incarnate. "Explain." The bureaucrat swallowed hard. "Well, the humans saw our drones and seemed to think they were some kind of prank. They strapped fireworks to them. They put googly eyes on the cameras. One was last seen being ridden by a human who was shouting something about going viral before it crashed into a tree." Blorgoth VII felt something he had never felt before, something deeper than fear, something worse than terror. It was an emotion ancient beyond words, one that had driven countless species to abandon entire galaxies. Despair. "We need to contain this," he declared, rising to his full gelatinous height. "We must send a team to assess the threat. If these creatures truly enjoy their own destruction, then we may be facing the most dangerous species to ever exist." Across the chamber, 1,000 alien minds came to the same horrifying conclusion. A species that liked being a Class 13 was a species that could never be stopped. The mission to Earth was assigned to a team of elite operatives from the Galactic Observation Corps, a group so secretive that even their own government occasionally forgot they existed. These beings were the best of the best, specialists in infiltration, reconnaissance, and, most importantly, surviving first contact with terrifyingly advanced civilizations. They had studied the tactics of Class 11 warlords, escaped the gravity traps of Class 12 nightmares, and now they were being sent to investigate something worse. Captain Yilrak, the team leader, had exactly 3 thoughts upon receiving the mission briefing. 1, he was going to die. 2, his entire team was going to die. 3, whoever had rated Earth as Class 13 had been far too generous. Their ship, the Prudent Caution, approached the blue and green world with all the enthusiasm of a condemned prisoner walking to the gallows. Every scan only made things worse. The planet was a death trap. Oceans full of creatures that could electrocute you, impale you, or just eat you whole for fun. Land masses teeming with apex predators, so overpowered that evolution itself must have been drunk when it designed them. And the weather. There was a place called Tornado Alley, where the air itself decided to spin into a murder spiral for no apparent reason. And somehow, the dominant species had not only survived all this, but looked bored. Yilrak's claws trembled as he read the cultural analysis. "Are we sure these reports are correct?" The analyst, a twitchy being named Quicks, nodded weakly. "I triple-checked. They run towards explosions. They climb mountains without safety equipment. He swallowed hard. "They have something called Australia." The entire bridge crew shuddered. There was no time to process this existential nightmare because the ship's cloaking field fizzled for exactly 2 seconds as they entered the atmosphere. And in that time, at least 7 different human devices detected them. The response was immediate. Alarms blared, beings scrambled. Yilrak braced for planetary defenses, nuclear launches, something. Instead, their transmission feed was flooded with signals, but not in any recognizable military code. The humans had detected an unknown craft and responded with memes. "Captain!" Quicks whispered in abject horror. They're posting about us." Yilrak stared at the screen, his mind struggling to comprehend what he was seeing. Hundreds of messages, images, and videos flashing by. Some were jokes, others were conspiracy theories forming in real time. One human had already printed a T-shirt that read, "I saw the UFO and all I got was this lousy shirt." How? Then a new message appeared, a blurry video of their ship, clearly taken from some handheld device. A human voice spoke over the footage, full of excitement and zero fear. "Yo, aliens, if you see this, land in my backyard. We got beer." The bridge was silent. Then Yilrak, very quietly, said, "We need to leave. Now." Quicks nodded. Agreed. But before they could react, the ship jolted. A strange force had taken hold of them, pulling them downward. Yilrak panicked. "Are we being tracted?" The pilot checked the readings. "No, it's humans!" And sure enough, there they were. Dozens of them, gathered below in an open field. But instead of weapons, they were holding up signs that read, "Welcome to Earth, and take me with you, I hate my job." One particularly determined human had brought out what their research identified as a barbecue grill, and was now cooking meat while waving cheerfully at them. Yilrak felt his stomach churn with something beyond fear, a deep, cosmic realization that everything he understood about intelligent life was wrong, because these creatures were not just surviving a Class 13 world, they were enjoying it. The Prudent Caution hovered unsteadily over the human gathering, its crew paralyzed by a uniquely existential horror. They had been detected, identified, and welcomed in the span of 5 minutes. Yilrak clutched the armrests of his command chair, his claws digging into the synthetic material. His brain screamed at him to activate the emergency thrusters, break atmosphere, and never return to this cursed world. But there was a problem. The humans weren't letting them leave. Not with force, not with weapons, but with an overwhelming chaotic energy that was impossible to counteract. The field below had transformed into a festival of some kind. More humans were arriving, carrying folding chairs, drinks, and what appeared to be small, rapidly cooking meat cylinders on sticks. The smell was oddly enticing. Someone had set up a portable music system, and now there was dancing. A child waved at them with glow sticks. "Captain," Quick said, his voice barely above a whisper. I think they're having a party because of us." Yulrak watched in growing horror as two humans unrolled a massive banner that read, "Land Cowards." The crew sat in stunned silence. "How did you respond to something like that?" "Options," Yulrak barked. "Now!" "We could fire a warning shot?" "They would enjoy that," Quick said flatly. "They'd probably cheer." "Activate our shields." "They'd throw things at it to see if it makes cool sounds." "Deploy a decoy," and the ship suddenly lurched. Not from a weapon, not from an attack, from something far worse. A rope. A human had lassoed their landing gear. There was a long, terrible silence on the bridge. Yulrak turned, very slowly, to the sensor technician. "Explain." The technician swallowed hard. A large human, wearing a hat of some kind, has roped our ship and is currently trying to wrangle us like an unbroken stallion." "What is a stallion?" "I don't know, Captain." And the ship jolted again. A new voice came over the external speakers. It was deep, amused, and brimming with a confidence that should not exist when addressing an unidentified spacecraft. "Y'all ain't from around here, huh?" The crew of the Prudent Caution collectively lost their minds. Yulrak felt something inside him snap. The mission was over. There was no salvaging this. They had been identified, physically detained by ropes, and were now being casually spoken to as if they had just wandered into the wrong bar. There was only one option left. "Fine," Yulrak muttered. "We land." A long pause. Quicks blinked. "What?" Yulrak exhaled slowly. "We land. We study these creatures up close. We interact." The word tasted like death. "We record data. And then we get the hell out of here." The bridge crew exchanged worried glances but ultimately nodded. Resistance was futile. The humans had won without even knowing there was a battle. The ship descended. The humans cheered. Yulrak muttered under his breath, "I am going to regret this." The Prudent Caution touched down with a soft thud, its landing struts sinking slightly into the soil. Immediately, the humans erupted into applause. Applause. As if the most classified infiltration unit in galactic history had just performed a particularly entertaining circus trick. Yulrak sat frozen in his command chair, his mind refusing to process what was happening. He had prepared for many scenarios: hostile engagements, diplomatic negotiations, emergency evacuations, but never for being treated like a beloved celebrity guest at a casual backyard gathering. Outside, the humans were already closing in, some holding up strange, rectangular devices that flashed. "They are documenting us," Quicks whispered. "They're taking photographs," the science officer corrected, eyes wide, "to share with their networks." "They have networks?" Yulrak asked. "Yes, billions of them." There was a long, dreadful pause. "Open the external scanners," Yulrak muttered. "I want to see what they're saying." The screen flickered. Text and images flooded in. Thousands, no millions of humans were already discussing them in real time. Theories were forming at an unnatural speed. Some were convinced they were here to start diplomatic relations. Others thought they had come to abduct cows. One particularly aggressive subsection was furiously debating spaceship engine efficiency as if they had any idea what they were talking about. "Captain," Quick said weakly, "I think they're having fun." Yulrak had never been more afraid in his life. A heavy knock on the hull made everyone jump. The external cameras focused on the source. It was the large human in the hat, the one who had roped their ship. He waved. Yulrak exhaled slowly. "We need to send someone out." Silence. Every member of the crew turned to look at him. "I mean," Yulrak corrected quickly, "someone else needs to go out." The team's linguistics expert, Rills, let out a strangled sigh and rose from his chair. Fine, fine, I'll do it. He stomped toward the airlock, muttering under his breath about how he should have pursued his dream of asteroid farming instead of this nonsense. The ramp lowered. The humans cheered again. Rills hesitated, then took a slow step onto the grass. He had barely set foot on solid ground when the large human grinned and extended a hand. Howdy! Rills stared at the offered hand like it was an unexploded mine. Pardon? Howdy, the man repeated. Welcome to Earth. A pause. Rills turned slightly, looking back toward the ship like he was begging someone to intervene. Yulrak did not. The linguistics expert took a deep breath, gathered every ounce of his extensive training, and responded. Howdy. The human beamed. Well, look at that. Y'all do talk. We were starting to think you'd just stand there being all mysterious. We are very mysterious, Rills said cautiously. Extremely so. Sure, the human said, completely unimpressed. So what brings you down here? You fixin' to invade or just sightseeing? Rills blinked. What? No. We are here to observe. Neat. Y'all want a beer? What? Beer. The human gestured toward a nearby table where several humans were gathered around a large, ice-filled container of colorful cans. You know, booze, liquid courage, cold ones with the boys. No, we do not consume unknown foreign substances. Oh, sure. The human nodded, then cracked open a can and downed half of it in one go. There, now it ain't foreign no more. Rills turned to Yulrak and silently screamed with his eyes. Yulrak turned off the external cameras. This was already worse than he had imagined. Inside the prudent caution, Yulrak watched the unfolding disaster with the growing certainty that his life was now a cosmic joke. Rills, their top linguistics expert, was standing motionless, staring at the human who had just demonstrated their baffling drink-sharing diplomacy technique. The other humans, who had somehow multiplied in number, were watching expectantly, as if Rills's next words would determine the fate of their entire gathering. Yulrak activated the comlink. Say something. Rills very slowly exhaled. Then, with the composure of someone making peace with the abyss, he muttered, Do you have water? The human grinned. Sure thing. You want it bottled, tap, or straight from the hose? Rills hesitated. Hose? Oh, hell yeah. Best way to drink it when it's hot out. Before Rills could respond, another human, this one wearing a shirt with the words, Bigfoot is real, and he stole my car, grabbed a nearby green tube, turned a valve, and blasted a high-pressure jet of water directly into his own face. The crew of the Prudent Caution collectively gasped. Yulrak slammed a fist against the console. He's under attack. Quicks frantically analyzed the scene. No, wait, I think it's voluntary. Rill stood frozen as the now drenched human wiped his face and grinned. See, refreshing as hell. Rill's voice hollow simply muttered, I would like the bottled water. The crowd looked vaguely disappointed, but accepted his decision. A bottle was handed over. He took a slow, careful sip, fully expecting it to burn, explode, or possibly turn him into a human. When nothing happened, he nodded politely. It is, acceptable. The crowd cheered again. Yulrak slammed the comlink. Get out of there, now. I'm trying, Rills hissed back, but every time I move, they celebrate something else. Sure enough, a shorter human approached, holding a metal tray piled with blackened, oddly shaped slabs. All right, who's hungry? We got burgers, brats, and... The human noticed Rills, eyes lighting up. Oh, damn, y'all eat meat? Rills hesitated. We do consume protein. Hell yeah, you want a burger? It's beef. Or you more of a chicken kind of guy? No. I am... The human was already moving, grabbing one of the slabs and shoving it into what appeared to be a primitive food containment device. Here, try this. Rills stared down at the object now in his hands. It was round, soft exterior, meat in the middle, a burger they called it. Yulrak activated the comms. Do not eat it. Rills nodded slowly, then turned to the human and said, I will consume this later. Ah, cool. Just make sure to eat it while it's hot. A new human suddenly appeared, holding a device that flashed with an eerie glow. Hey, bro, you mind if I get a selfie with you? It was already happening. The human held up the device, grinned, and pressed something. A small sound chimed. The human looked at the screen and nodded, pleased. Hell yeah, this is gonna blow up online. Rills whispered into his communicator, Captain, they're documenting me again. Yulrak's claws scraped against his console. This is a disaster. But it was too late. The humans were swarming now, not in violence, not in aggression, but in pure, reckless curiosity. They wanted to know everything, where they came from, how their ship worked, whether Rills liked nachos. Rills turned slightly, locking eyes with the ship's camera. Yulrak could see it. Defeat. Pure, absolute defeat. The humans had won, and they hadn't even tried. Inside the prudent caution, Yulrak gripped the command console, watching in silent horror as his top linguistics expert was dragged deeper into the incomprehensible madness that was human social interaction. Rills had failed every possible metric of an undercover operation. He had accepted their food. He had participated in their hydration rituals, and now, worst of all, he had become an attraction. More humans had arrived, swarming the area with an energy that should not be possible for a species that was supposed to fear the unknown. But no, they were thrilled. Someone had set up a merchandise stand. Yulrak squinted at the external camera feed. Are they selling T-shirts? Quick zoomed in. Pixie. Sure enough, a human with sunglasses and a truly questionable grasp of copyright law was standing behind a folding table, exchanging rectangular pieces of paper for shirts that read, I met an alien, and all I got was existential dread and welcome to Earth, try not to die. Rills, still trapped among the humans, whispered into his communicator, Captain, I'm frightened. Yulrak took a slow breath. He needed to think. The mission was compromised, yes. They had already been detected, welcomed, and possibly inducted into a cookout, but there had to be a way to salvage this. The problem was containment. If these humans spread this information across their planetary networks, the entire galaxy would learn about it. And then absolute chaos. Other species would come to investigate. Opportunists, warbands, worse, tourists. This had to end. Now. Yulrak activated the comms. Quix, new plan. Initiate protocol hushed whisper. Quix paled. Sir. That's... Do it! Quix swallowed hard, then activated the emergency frequency jammer. Instantly, every human device within a 3-mile radius shut down. The reaction was immediate. Humans froze. Then came the shouts of confusion. A man poked at his glowing rectangle. Bro, my phone just died. Mine too, another yelled. Oh my God, it's the aliens, someone screamed. Yulrak sighed in relief. Finally, control was restored. They would claim interference, erase data, and leave before... Dude, a voice yelled. They just emped us. The crowd erupted in cheers. Yulrak's claws dug into the console. Why are they happy? Quix looked at the data. Captain, they think it's cool. The external camera showed a human shaking Rills excitedly. Bro, that was badass. You guys got like alien hacking powers? Can you shut down Wall Street? Another human, wearing a hat that read Conspiracy Club President, was frantically scribbling in a notebook. I knew it. The government said EMP weapons were impossible, but the aliens have them. A third human waved a metal detector in the air. Hey, zap me with that again. I want to see if it screws with my pacemaker. Yulrak felt something break inside him. Rills, who had clearly given up all hope, sighed into the communicator. Captain, I believe we are dealing with a species that is physically incapable of being intimidated. Yulrak slammed his head against the console. This wasn't a species that needed protection from the galaxy. This was a species the galaxy needed protection from. Yulrak had lost control. Completely, totally, utterly. Protocol-hushed whisper, designed to induce terror and confusion, had backfired spectacularly. Instead of fleeing, the humans were thrilled. They were cheering the electromagnetic disruption of their own technology. Some had already started theorizing how they could get EMP powers of their own. One was waving around what the translator identified as a car battery, while shouting, "Someone hook me up!" Yulrak could not process this. "Do they not fear anything?" he whispered. Quix, still staring at the data feed in sheer disbelief, responded, "Sir, I'm starting to think that fear for them is just a suggestion." On the ground, Rills had entered what could only be described as a state of resigned delirium. He stood motionless as the humans excitedly debated their own technological inferiority. "Bro," one said, eyes wide with realization, "they EMP'd us without warning. That means they could shut down the whole planet if they wanted." Another gasped. "Yo, do you think this is a test?" A woman nodded seriously. "What if they're here to see if we're worthy? Like if we freak out, they vaporize us, but if we stay chill, they take us to space." Someone immediately turned to Rills. "Hey, are you all recruiting?" Rills blinked slowly. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, then closed. Yulrak silently screamed. Then the worst possible thing happened. A human stepped forward, arms raised high. A hush fell over the crowd. He had long, unkempt hair, a beard of considerable thickness, and wore a tie-dye shirt depicting a cat riding a pizza through space. This was a leader. "My dudes," the human proclaimed, his voice carrying the gravitational pull of an impending disaster. "We are witnessing history." The humans nodded in solemn agreement. "These interstellar homies have chosen us for first contact," the bearded one continued. "Not some government stooges, not some shadowy conspiracy. US, the people, the weirdos, the ones who stay up late watching YouTube videos about UFOs." There was clapping, actual clapping. Yulrak wanted to scream. "And you know what?" The human's eyes burned with intensity. "I say we prove to them that we're ready." The crowd roared in approval. Yulrak braced himself. What insanity was about to unfold? The human took a deep breath. "Let's see if they can handle—" He threw his arms out, grinning wildly. "The chug." The crowd went feral. Humans began grabbing aluminum containers, cracking them open with ritualistic fervor. Several tilted their heads back and began consuming the liquid at high velocity. Others chanted. A group in the corner was hyping up one individual, slapping him on the back as he prepared to consume an entire funnel's worth of liquid in one go. Quix stared at the screen in mute horror. "Sir," he whispered, I think we've initiated some kind of warrior challenge." Rills turned toward the ship's cameras, his eyes empty. "Captain," Yulrak swallowed. "Yes? I think—" Rills exhaled, voice shaking. "I think they believe this is how we choose leaders." Yulrak nearly passed out. This was it. The moment Yulrak had dreaded since they had first set foot in this accursed solar system. The humans had interpreted their presence as a test of worthiness, and now they were proving themselves in the most baffling, most chaotically reckless way imaginable. By chugging beverages at high velocity, on the external cameras, a large, muscular human was now standing atop a wooden table, surrounded by a circle of chanting onlookers. He raised a tall aluminum container above his head, shouted something incomprehensible, then tilted it back, consuming the contents in mere seconds. The humans exploded into cheers. Yulrak's brain shut down. "Captain," Rills whispered, still stranded outside, "they have mistaken drinking speed for leadership potential." Yulrak took a slow breath, claws trembling. "And who is currently winning?" A beat of silence. "Bradley." "Who is Bradley?" Rills's voice was hollow. "A legend, apparently." On screen, Bradley, the champion of the chug, wiped his mouth and pointed directly at Rills. "All right, lil buddy, your turn." The crowd fell silent. waiting, expectant. Inside the prudent caution, panic levels reached critical failure. "Sir," Quix muttered, "if Rills refuses, they may see it as a sign of weakness." Yulrak buried his face in his hands. "Rills," he groaned, "for the love of every celestial body, do not drink that." "I don't want to drink that." Bradley waved a fresh can at him. "Come on, buddy, show us what you got." Rills took a slow step backward. I must decline." The crowd gasped. A murmur spread. Confusion. Doubt. "Uh-oh," Quix whispered. "They think he's unworthy." "Rills," Yulrak snapped. "Fix this before they turn on us." Rills froze. Then suddenly he straightened, channeling every diplomatic instinct he had ever been trained for. He took a deep breath. Then he pointed at Bradley. "You," Rills declared, voice steady, "have already proven your strength." The crowd stilled, watching, waiting. Rills continued, "A true leader does not need to prove themselves again." A beat. Then Bradley squinted, nodded slowly. "Yeah, that tracks." The crowd erupted in agreement. Yulrak nearly collapsed. Bradley grinned, clapped Rills on the shoulder and shouted, "All right, boys, the aliens are cool." Instantly, the entire tone shifted. Beverages were raised. Food was shared. Someone cranked up the music. Yulrak watched, stunned, as the most dangerous first contact scenario in history had somehow devolved into a party. A human waved at the ship. "Hey, spaceship dude, y'all want to come out and vibe?" Yulrak shut off the external cameras. They had survived, but only barely. He exhaled. "Rills, get back inside, now!" The mission was over. The Council needed to hear about this immediately, because the galaxy had been wrong about Class 13. It wasn't just a measurement of destruction or danger. It was something much worse. It was enthusiasm.